Hey, welcome to Ed, a podcast about the teaching life. This is Conversation 70, and I'm your host, Shane Lawrence. Ed is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network powered by ATB. And joining me this week is teacher and unlearner, Rebecca Chambers. But here we are. Well, Rebecca, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, how's your day been?
My day's been good. It's been busy. A little tired after the big Halloween evening, but
yeah. Do you have kids?
I do. So they're 6 and 11.
Ooh.
And they're, you know what? They're at a great age. The only problem is, back in the day when we first started going out, 20 minutes, half an hour was perfect because they were exhausted. But now they've got a lot more stamina.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're at like an hour and a half to 2 hours out there.
Yeah.
So, and we have enough candy to feed, an army.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Mine are only 4 and 2, but holy smokes,
Okay.
they were pushing me last night anyway. I mean, well, not my 2-year-old. He was done. We were dragging around in a wagon, half asleep for most of it. But yeah, my 4-year-old, holy smokes, she just took off, man.
Yeah. You can't stop them.
Yeah. It starts easy and then just gets really, it gets to be a bit of an endurance thing. But anyway, you've recovered.
Well, yes, I think I need to go to bed early tonight, but yes, I have recovered.
Yeah, I hear you. Me too. As long as the kids don't get into the candy.
After the sugar hangover.
Yeah, right on. Well, let's take it a step back here. You are also a teacher, yes?
Yes,
and
I am.
What is it that you specifically do?
So I'm a high school teacher at a school here in Ottawa. And you must be at school.
How did you know?
So I teach in a specialized program for high performance athletes.
Ooh.
I am the social science teacher. So I teach grade 10 history, grade 11 intro to anthro, psych, and soc, and 2 grade 12 courses, human growth and development and world issues. Yeah.
So, okay. I mean, I always feel a little try that again. I always feel a little sorry for teachers who are in one of these schools, because I did my student teaching in a school where they had a dance program and they had a hockey program and a military program. Those are the 3 big things. But I mean, Lord help you if you weren't involved with one of those programs and you had students, because I found the overall attitude was very much, well, I'm going to be a professional athlete, or I'm going to be a professional dancer, or I'm going to join the military so I don't have to work hard at whatever it is you're presenting to me. Like, do you find that where you are?
No, I think for the most part, the kids in the program know, like, they're great athletes, and I think they know the stats on whether or not they're going to make it to the big show.
Yeah.
But I think because we have this program, and it's a very small program in a large school. We're about 1,300 students, and there's only about 200 students in this specialized program.
Oh, okay.
So they get a lot of flexibility with their schedule, and we still try to maintain that, they're holding up the same quality of work or amount of work as the regular stream kids. And I agree. Yes, there are some kids who are like, oh, I don't need high school because I'm going to be a professional athlete. But for the most part, they want to go off to post-secondary to continue their sport. So
right.
So it's important to them.
So that they're clear-eyed enough that they can see there's still a path involving further education and maybe even not making it as a professional athlete.
Yeah.
Well,
so, but I mean, you have they're also just kids too, right? So you have the kids who are definitely very motivated to do both sport and school, but then you have the regular kids who, don't necessarily love school.
What?
Yeah, there's some of those.
I believe it. I've seen a couple of them myself over the years.
Yeah.
Oh, right on. So how did you wind up working at a school like that? Was that something that was sort of, did you try to get there, or did you just sort of wind up there?
So it's the 3rd school that I've been at. I first started at a school, a much smaller community-based. There was only 450 kids. And part of the problem was there weren't enough kids. So after 2 years of me being there, not because of me, I hope, the school closed. And so then I moved on to another school, and it was a little further into the city, and it was a really wide range of different students. And I was there for about 8 years, and
Hmm.
I loved it, and I loved the kids. I loved the staff. I live a little bit outside of Ottawa, so I was kind of looking, and this is the time where I was having children, and I was looking for something a little bit closer to home, and I was ready for a little bit of a change. So, when this opportunity came up, I applied for the job, hoping, one, to be closer to home,
Hmm.
and two, to try out. When I first started at the school, the program only had an English, a math, and a science teacher, so they didn't have social science yet.
Oh,
Uh, but when I interviewed, they were talking about the potential of that happening, and I at that point said, "Oh, I'd love to try it." So that's kind of how I stumbled into it. I didn't go to the school specifically for the program,
right.
but yeah, so that's how I ended up in it, and I've been doing that for 5 years.
So, well, okay. I don't know how long you were in your first place, but you've been teaching for how long now then?
About 16 years.
16. Okay. So
Yeah,
we're on about the same path here.
yeah.
Right on. Okay. I don't normally like to try and throw a curveball right off the bat, but
Uh-oh.
if you'll be gracious enough, I'll throw you a curveball. Um,
Okay.
on your Twitter feed, which is where I learn everything about my guests, it
Yes.
says you have a quote from Roosevelt that says, "Do one thing every day that scares you."
Yes.
Now, I know eventually we're going to wind up with the unlearning thing,
Yes.
but what scares you?
Oh, what
Or what have you
scares me?
done that scares you?
Oh, I think every day when I walk into my classroom, I'm scared. Yeah, it's taken me a while, and I think and not that I came across this quote until later, but just making the transition from more of a traditional classroom to we're now 100% project based.
Mhm.
Uh, that was a big step, and it was scary. I like change, so I think I'm more likely to do those types of things. But
Mhm.
I really every day I don't know what I'm going into, so I'm scared every day. Yeah,
Do you like being scared?
I think that's part of. I like a challenge.
Mm.
Um, so I don't know if being scared and challenged are the same thing, but I think they could be.
Well, I think challenge is in and of itself, it's kind of a scary thing.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
yeah,
if you it's pretty easy to conflate, fear with like life changing, you're in a raging river and you're drowning. I mean, that's very scary. But I think it can also come from something as simple as like, well, I'm going to try something different today. And,
yes,
probably not going to die, but
yeah,
might wind up being a bit of a disaster.
yeah. Yeah, I think, and that's something that I think the reason I have that quote is because I'm asking my students to take risks
Mhm.
and to put themselves out there. And if you want to talk about maybe the biggest fear that I had was last year when I eventually, like, I really wanted to start a blog, and I was terrified. And I don't know if you've seen the stuff I've put
Mhm.
recently. Um, but I had a grade 12, and in Ontario at the time when I was here, we had to do grade 13, and I had the same English teacher each year, and he told me that I wasn't, or he called me dumb in front of my class, and
Oh,
told me I had the reading level of a grade 8, and that I was an athlete as well, and I missed quite a bit of school because I was traveling. And that jocks shouldn't take advanced English, and that I wasn't going to go to university. And so I had a real phobia of writing because of what was kind of in my head from high school.
yeah.
And
Huh.
anyways, so I would say one of the biggest risks that I took was actually writing that blog, but and putting it out into the world, and sharing that. Yeah,
Yeah. Sorry, I'm mad at your English teacher.
I am too.
What a
I
punk.
I am and I'm not, because just recently I had posted something. Disrupt Ed magazine or TV was posting something, and I just shared one of the blog posts because it connected to what they were talking about. And
Mhm.
and they asked if I would be interested in having it published through their magazine, or they put it on Medium. And I
Yeah.
was like, really? Like, seriously? So then I dedicated my first published article to my former teacher.
Ha ha.
Yes.
All right.
I don't know where he is, but
Oh, he's probably. I'm gonna guess he's probably very, very sad and filled
yeah.
with regret every day.
Yes.
I hope.
Me too.
It's a horrible thing to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it certainly doesn't. I don't know. But at the same time, you seem like you thrive on challenge. I mean, when he told you those things, was it something that beat you down, or were you kind of like, nah, I'm gonna beat that?
I do think it was a defining time in my life, because I'd had him, like I said, I'd had him in grade 12. And then when we take grade 13, that was like what allowed us to get into university.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we know that everybody, doesn't matter what program you take, you have to take university English. And I guess I'd had conversations with my parents. I had conversations with the admin at my school. And at that time, their response was, well, you need to talk to him. It wasn't, oh, we're going to have a conversation with him.
Yeah.
And it forced me to go in and confront him and say, this is not fair, the way that you're treating me. And I think it was a really important moment in my life. I was terrified, and but I had to do it. And yes, and it was kind of like, I remember saying to him, you're not going to stand in the way of me going to university. Like, we got to figure something out here.
Awesome. Awesome. That's
Yeah.
a real movie moment right there. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I was shaking though.
Oh, I'll bet.
Terrified, but yeah, it was important for me to do.
That was your Teddy Roosevelt moment for the day, right? Check. Done.
Yes, there we go. Yeah.
Well, okay, so let's come to the meat of our discussion here, because the one thing that really interests me is this whole unlearning thing. Can you just unpack that for me? All right, we'll do some unpacking in a minute, but first I want to tell you about Park Power, a provider of electricity and natural gas in Alberta that offers low rates, awesome service, and profit sharing with local charities. In Alberta, you get to choose who to buy your energy from, and if you choose Park Power, your money stays here. Plus, Park Power shares its profits with local not-for-profits that are working to make a difference for their communities. Shopping local is very important to Park Power's owner, Chris Kozowski, and we love local here at the Alberta Podcast Network, so it's a great fit. You can learn more at parkpower.ca. All right, let's unpack some stuff. Let's come to the meat of our discussion here, because the one thing that really interests me is this whole unlearning thing. Can you just unpack that for me?
Yeah, so I read an article, I think it was last year, and I think in my own journey, I've been trying to figure out what it all is, and as I come across different things, and actually my aha moment was watching the Sir Ken Robinson video. I think it was put out in like 2007, but I think I saw it in like 2011. And I remember sitting there watching it going, oh my goodness, like, these are all the things that I think I've been feeling and thinking, but what never really knew it, because I was in this box, I was in this system, and I just doing what we're supposed to do. And when I watched that, I was like, oh my goodness, like, this is so true. And I need to do something about it. And that was in 2011. And I think at that point, my own unlearning journey started, but I didn't even realize it until I read, like I said, I read this article last year where there's a school in, I can't remember, somewhere in the United States. It's called Beaver County School. And they're working with a woman, and I should have pulled this article up, but I think it's either Stanford or Harvard. And they are taking, it's a private school, and they're taking their entire staff through an unlearning process. And ultimately, what I understood from it was wiping the slate clean. And unlearning can obviously happen anywhere. It's not just in education. It's wiping the slate clean of something that we know and think is concrete, and starting fresh. And I think, like I said, when I saw that the school kills creativity, that was kind of like my journey was started then. I think my journey actually started in my grade 12 English class when when I realized, like, why I wanted to become a teacher was to change the way things were happening, and for students like myself. Uh, and then, yeah, and then ever since, 2011, I've just sort of done my own professional learning and continued to unlearn what we think school is. And I slowly sort of peeled away, and stopped giving tests, and I stopped I mean, stopped everything, where I'm at now,
Mm.
and re-looked at how can we do this differently.
So it sounds to me like unlearning is on both sides, if you will. It's on the teacher side, it's on the student side. So,
Oh, for sure.
so on the teacher side of things, what are some of the big things you think that as a profession, as a group, we need to unlearn?
Well, that's a big question.
Sorry.
So what do we need to unlearn? So I think we need to, like I said, like, just forget what you know. And again, that's easier said than done.
Mm.
I completely recognize that it's taken me, and I'm still on this journey. It's taken me, like, I'd say a good 6 to 10 years to really dive in. But I think I think a lot of it is that the kids have lost, or our school has lost a lot of purpose. And so somebody who I really fell in love with their ideas and philosophies is Alan November. I'm not sure if you're
A-
familiar.
Alan November.
Yeah. So
Sounds like a spy name. No, I've never heard of this guy.
so he's an educator in the States, and I came across him. I was actually taking an AQ course, integrative technology communications, or compute. I can't remember what it was, ICT.
Sure.
And I came across him, and he talks a lot about technology and the fact that, we have access to so much, and we need to really think about what we're teaching and how we're teaching it, because our kids have access to everything. They don't need the teacher at the front to be the be all and end all and the most knowledgeable in the room.
Mm-hmm.
They need somebody to guide them through all of these different avenues and places to get information. So that's part of his thoughts. And then the other side of it is that we need to put purpose back into the classroom.
Mm.
He goes back into, like, looking at, in history, everybody in a community had a purpose. Kids had, adults had a purpose, and kids had a purpose. They all had to do something that contributed to the community. And he said, yeah, school has really taken a lot of that away from it. And the kids show up and they do their thing, and they're there to get their marks.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no real purpose. I mean, there's learning, which is really important, but they're not doing anything to give back to their community. They're not doing anything that is authentic. And we need more of that. And I think if I have way more, I think, that I could talk about. But I think that's one of the biggest things is connecting community, connecting passion to what they're learning, and not being so fixated on curriculum and content.
Mm.
And people get very angry at me when I say that. But finding ways to embed, the curriculum into what the kids are really interested in learning, and recognizing that they all don't have to learn the same thing at the same time.
Yeah. That almost
Yeah.
sounds kind of backwards to how, you tend to intuit that kind of thing. Like you think of, okay, I've got the curriculum, so I'm going to see what sort of relevant items I can put into it. But you're talking
Yeah.
about, let's see what's relevant and then put the curriculum into that.
Yeah. And I just came across, because I've been having lots of conversations with people about this recently.
Mm.
And I'm a social science teacher, so it always gets thrown back at me, oh, you're a social science teacher, so you can make this work in your class, no problem, but you have no idea what it's like to be in, fill in the blank. And it's usually math and science.
Mm-hmm.
And I am still trying to wrap my head around how you would do these types of things in math. When I understand, that's very much based on, what you learn in grade 9, you need in order to be able to be successful in grade 10, and so on and so on. But I just came across a man by the name of Bill Fogarty.
Mhm.
He's in New Brunswick,
Okay.
and he's a physics teacher. And I listened to a podcast with him the other day, and I was like, yes, because he is to me. And again, I'm a social science teacher, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think physics is a combination of math and science.
Yeah,
Um,
I think so.
and, and yeah, and so he's bringing real world into his classroom, and he's teaching the kids physics. So I think it is doable.
I think it is, but yeah, it seems like math is kind of the punching bag for any time that that there's some sort of new initiative. I know in our district, there was one a few years ago about like literacy, and so the math teachers and it was supposed to be across all areas of curriculum, and so the math teachers are like, "Oh, how do we do literacy in math?" And anytime there seems to be something new like this, it's always the math teachers that get short shrift, I think, or
Yeah.
maybe just they're just I don't know. I like to pick on math teachers. If you
Yeah.
teach math and you wanna tell me about how you do it, give me a call, give me a shout.
Yes,
But
I want to hear.
yeah, I kind of do now. This is kind of opening up a new thought door in my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So we talked. So let's flip over to the student side of things now. I mean, what do you need? What do students need to unlearn if they're going to be more successful?
Well, in my class, like I was saying, we've gone 100% project based.
Mhm.
So that's challenging for them. They have to unlearn. It's almost like it's not just the teachers, it's the students for sure. It's the parents, it's society in general
Mhm.
need to really be able to let go of what they know of school, right? Like I
Mhm.
ask the kids, what is school? When you think of school, what is it? And or if you ask parents, well, it's homework, and it's lessons at school, and it's tests, and it's projects, and that's pretty much how they describe school. And
Mhm.
so they've got to be able to get away from the fact, oh, and sorry, I missed the big one, grades.
Yeah.
um, that's the big one, and that's the focus, and that's the big thing that we work on in my classroom, is getting away from being fixated on grade,
Mhm.
and learning how to fail, and being okay with failing, and giving them a safe place to do that, and taking these risks. So they go through, or I go through actually an entire week at the beginning of all my courses, of an unlearning sort of module or a process
Mhm.
for my students, and explaining. And I think part of that unlearning is explaining why we need to change, looking at employers and what they're looking for and what our world looks like, and say, does our school, like what you're doing, does that mirror what they're asking for? Are you getting those skills and the things that you need to be successful in this modern and very much changing world?
Yeah.
So there's a lot.
Yeah, yeah, no, it just got me thinking about this. I don't know if it's been put down on paper anywhere, but there's the curriculum, and then there's the other curriculum, which is I think what you're talking about. The idea that there's things we have to teach, but there's also the things we have to teach. The things that businesses are looking for, things about resiliency and self-knowledge and being a self-starter, all these kinds of things, right? They have to be instilled in our students, because if we don't do that, then by the time they get to university or to a more competitive work environment, then people who already maybe have a little bit of a head start for whatever set of circumstances they've experienced, they're the ones going to be grabbing all the opportunity. Whereas I think, yeah, for us, we need to be able to give students those skills
Yeah.
for what's required for the world beyond.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you awkward pause. Awesome.
Yeah.
So you talk. You've also mentioned failure a few times. That's a really buzzy word. So I think we kind of need
Yeah.
to attack it. Because failure is the shiny thing, and it's great to just kind of walk around and say, "Yeah, my students fail all the time." But I mean, there's failing, and then there's actually failing.
Yeah.
So how does failure work in your class?
So in order, and I've been working on this for the last little while. That is, like I said, that's one of the things in their unlearning week that we spend together that we talk a lot about is failure. And there's some amazing videos, and I think we've all seen where you see all these like Albert Einstein and Michael Jordan and
Mm-hmm.
all these famous people who failed and didn't give up and succeeded. So we start off with that so we can get them motivated, and then where it actually happens, or where I hope that it happens, is in their day to day. And I think that my students are getting to a point, especially like my grade 12s, and because I am in this specialized program, I am the only social science teacher. So if they continue in social sciences, I often will get them for all four of those courses.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they get to a point where they know that I'm not marking the final product of whatever it is that they're intending to do.
Right.
Um, and so they're more likely to take risks. And then at the end of it, they reflect on it. And that's what they're being assessed on, their
Mm-hmm.
ability to recognize the failure and figure out what went well, what didn't go well, and
Mm-hmm.
what did they actually learn from the failure. And so we always, there's a big joke, like if something doesn't go well, the kids automatically say, well, we learned from failure. So I think they're starting to embrace it,
Mm-hmm.
and putting themselves out there a little bit more, because the stakes are a lot lower. They know that if they screw up, it's okay, and we move on, and we assess what happened.
Right, right. And I think, with PBL, it's sort of there's an inherent value to the kind of work they're doing.
Yeah.
Because I mean, actually, well, I'm making some assumptions. Why don't you tell me, like, what's a PBL thing that maybe has worked really well for you in your class?
So do you mean like one of the projects that the kids are working on,
Yeah,
or?
like maybe just like
Yeah.
an overview of what's something that's been working well for you.
So this is my first year going like 100% project based.
Uh huh.
And they are all, I would say the majority of them are all really quite passionate about what they're working on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what went well? Like, I think they all go well. So I have a group of girls who really wanted to help support a breakfast program at our school. So right now we have kind of a little grab and go type of breakfast program, and they wanted to support that. And they thought, you know what? Okay, for our project, we're going to call stores, and we're going to get all kinds of granola bars, and they were super excited for their project. And so then they started to make all their phone calls, and they had a completion date. We need to have all this stuff done, and our goal is to have all these boxes of donated food that's going to go into the student success room by whatever it was, end of the September. So they worked super hard. They called, they went into grocery stores, they put stuff out on social media. I don't know, I think they were making like 4 or 5 calls a class kind of thing, and by the end of it they had nothing. And so they were devastated, and they'd put in all this work, and then they did the reflection, and we sit down and we have a conversation, and we talk about what could you have done differently. And it was a learning experience. So they recognize that, okay, you know what, giving us a week to do this, if we're contacting big stores, they realize, they had to fill out applications, and it takes time. And so if we were going to do this again, we'd recognize that we'd have to start a lot earlier, and whatever it was. So then they moved on to another project, which
Mm-hmm.
they're super excited about, and they're having a little bit more success with that. And they came running in the other day, and they'll say, Miss, you're not gonna believe this. And I said, what? They said, we've got $550 for the breakfast program. So they within like a week's time, 2 different grocery stores contacted them, said, we've accepted your application, and we're gonna, send you the money.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
yeah, and so now they're gonna go shopping with the student success teacher and pick out, the stuff. And so they're super excited. So that has been, I mean, to me, that is a lesson in failure,
Hmm.
and their success in the end. It was awesome. And there's all kinds of those happening in the class right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the real key thing there is they're learning. They have someone like you who's teaching them the resiliency
Yeah.
side of that. I mean, failure is easy. I mean, it's easy to fail.
Yeah.
It's
Oh yeah,
the hard part is, picking yourself back up.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right on. Oh, well, Rebecca, thank you very much for sharing your expertise. This has been really enlightening and inspiring.
Yes.
I've been sitting here while you're talking honestly, and I'm listening, but I'm also in the back of my mind. I'm like, oh, I could do this, and oh, that's a great idea, and I could do that, and just gets your brain spinning. I love this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So do I.
Right on. Well, if people want to read your blog before you get too famous to be, just on a mere blog,
Yeah.
and how and get in touch with you. I mean, how do they do that?
So the blog is unlearnwithus.com.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't been writing a whole lot lately. I just went back to school, or back to work full time. I was part time last year
Mm-hmm.
for about the last 5 years. So I'm not writing as much as I would like to be, but I'm definitely, I started it because I wanted it to be a place for other educators to sort of watch us try different things. And I'm writing about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because I think often when we hear, or we have speakers come in, they're always sort of like, we need to be doing this, and this is what it looks like, and it's beautiful, and it's perfect. And people are scared, and I want people to have a place and go, oh, look, she tried it. Oh, she learned that from it, so I'm not going to do that, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So yeah, so you can reach me there, and I'm on Twitter at Mrs. R Chambers, and we have a couple of class hashtags. But if you go to my account, you can see them there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, but thanks a lot, Rebecca. This has been great. And you know what? When you applied, I didn't even know that you had a podcast. So, because you're on Voice Ed Radio, right?
Oh yeah, my kids do. Yes, the students do.
You know what? Let's crack that open just before we go, because I feel like that
Sure.
would be a bit of an omission, an error of omission if we don't. So your students have a podcast on Voice Ed Radio.
Yes, yes. We were very fortunate to learn about Voice Ed Radio through Blue Sky School. I don't know if you've
Yes, I've
connected
heard
with
of
them
it.
at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had been volunteering and learning from them, and we were on their podcast, and then I was able to get in contact with Stephen Hurley, um, yeah, we just decided, let's try it out. We'll do a weekly podcast, and that was last year, kind of halfway through the year,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a group of kids who really just like loved it. And so we've continued with it, and we do a weekly podcast every Wednesday from 10:45 to 11:15. And right now it's a place where the kids discuss like their thoughts on education, but we're showcasing kind of the work that they're doing, yeah, so
And
it's
where we can go to voiceed.ca, listen to that. Where else can we find it? Is it on iTunes and whatnot, or sorry, Apple Podcasts?
it's on SoundCloud.
Okay.
As far as I know, my understanding is that he's moving to something called Spreaker,
Yep.
and that will eventually upload it to iTunes and Google Play.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really new at this.
Yeah.
I have some kids actually making podcasts in the class, like kind of doing their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they're always asking me questions, and I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, it's called the Twisted System Podcast.
Oh, that's a great title.
Yeah, so they came up with it. The kids came up with it, and yeah, it's been led by me mostly this year. Last year, it was almost by the end, it was like completely student led.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had the same kids who were that eager, and some of the kids are terrified of it. So I just kind of moderate and let them go as much as possible.
Awesome. Well, it's good that you've got kids that are really into that kind of thing. I've thought about it, but I'm scared. But
Yeah,
a little.
not sure what they're going to say.
No, not even that. I just finding students who would want to like dive in and keep doing it, week by week by week. That's I find that's a bit of a rare bird at at the high school age level. So
Yeah,
that's awesome that you've got that crew.
You don't have a choice. You know what? No, I don't make anyone do it that doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
There's always about, I'd say, 5 or 6 kids who are willing to be on it, and and when we're doing it, the other part of my class is either working on their projects kind of elsewhere, or we're working with a group of students with in a general learning program. They come to us, and the rest of the students go and hang out with them. So it kind of works out perfect.
Awesome. Well, I seem like I'm kind of chipping away at this monolith that is everything that you do. So why don't I just ask before we go then, is there anything else that you wanted to add in?
Just like we started, like do something every day that scares you. So try something in your class that kind of goes along with the unlearning idea.
Awesome. That's a great place to end it.
Yeah.
Okay, Rebecca, thank you so much for bearing with me
It's been great. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, right on. It's been fun. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing what your students are also sharing. That'll be a good listen.
Yes.
All righty. Well, you take care, and we'll see you around in the Twitterverse.
All right.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. This episode is brought to you by Otherwise. It's a variety podcast dedicated to empowering diverse communities living on Treaty 6 territory by sharing stories of our lived experiences. The show strives to highlight our collective ethno-cultural linguistic diversity and heritage, reflect who we are as a city, and bring about some positive social change. If you want to know more, you can head over to otherwiseshow.com. And listeners, if you want to get in touch or you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can email me at theedpodcast@gmail.com or hit me up on Twitter at theedpodcast. And if you want to listen to more of Ed, you can head over to the website, theedpodcast.podbean.com, or find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcatcher of your choice. Just search up Ed Conversations. Ed is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. You can find this and all other member podcasts at albertapodcastnetwork.com. Ed can also be heard on Voice Ed Radio. It's 24-hour internet broadcasting devoted to the best ideas in education. Just head over to voiced.ca. So, on behalf of myself and Rebecca, thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.